In this video, we'll be looking at how you rearrange equations or formulas to change the subject of what they equal. Through this video, we'll be looking at two different methods of completing this, and there'll be lots of examples for you to work through. Here we have an equation y equals 4x take away 3. Remember that the operation between the 4 and the x is multiplication. There's two ways that we can change this to make x the subject of this equation. In both methods, we make use of BIDMAS, which is the order of operations. First of all, let's look at this as a function calculator, which is a written method of our thought process using BIDMAS. We'll start with x because that's what we mean to make the subject of the equation. What would be the first thing we'd do if we knew what x was? Going through BIDMAS, we know the first thing we'd do is times by 4, and then we would subtract 3, and that would equal y. If we then reverse this, we're going to do to y what we did to x, but in reverse. So here, we're going to add 3, and then we're going to divide by 4, and that would equal x. So we end up with x, and read this from right to left, y plus 3 divided by 4. Now, as the y plus 3 must happen before dividing by 4, it's easier to consider the top of this fraction in brackets in this situation. Now let's have a look at a more advanced process called the balance method. You start with the same equation, y equals 4x take away 3, but we're going to look at doing this by undoing or reversing BIDMAS. So first of all, we're going to look for any addition and subtraction that's on the side with the variable that's going to become the subject of the formula. As I can see, there's a take away 3. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So that would give me y plus 3 equals 4 times x, or 4x. Think of it as a set of scales with the equal sign in the middle. Next, because we're timesing by 4, we're going to divide by 4 to both sides, and we end up with y plus 3 divided by 4 equals x. We can then reverse these to get x equals y plus 3 divided by 4. Once practiced, the balance method uses less time but relies on a really good understanding of BIDMAS and how to undo each operation. Here you can see a number of problems which require you to make A the subject of the equation. I'd advise you to pause now, attempt these problems, and then press play when you'd like me to go back through the answers. So in the first one, we've got A plus C equals B. So we want to make A the subject, so we're going to subtract C from both sides. And we get A equals B, take away C. In the next one, we've got A, B, remember, there's multiplication going on there, equals C. So because we're multiplying by B, we're going to divide both sides by B. And we end up with A equals C divided by B. And we'd write that as C over B. In the next one, we've got A divided by B, written as a fraction, equals C. Because we're dividing by B, we're going to multiply both sides by B. That means we get A on its own on the left-hand side and B times C on the right. Now I'm writing B times C because we normally try and write these in alphabetical order. I haven't written the multiplication sign in because BC means B times C. In question number 4, we've got A to the power of 2, or A squared. Now the opposite of A to the power of 2 is the square root of A. So that's what we're going to do to the left-hand side and to the right-hand side. So on the left, we get A, and on the right-hand side, where we had B plus C, we're going to square root not just the B, but the whole thing of B plus C. So we get A equals the square root of B plus C. In number 5, now here we've got two steps. We've got 4A minus C equals B. We need to use BIDMAS to make sure that we do these in the opposite order, okay? So first of all, we're going to undo the addition and subtraction. So we've got a subtract C. So we're going to add C to both sides. So we end up with 4A on the left-hand side and B plus C on the right-hand side. Now I need to get rid of the 4 times A, or 4A. So we're going to divide by 4 on the left-hand side and divide by 4 on the right-hand side. So we end up with A equals B plus C over 4. Now remember, the B plus C both have to be divided by 4, so it's always best to try and consider those as in brackets in this situation. In number 6, we've got 4A plus 5B equals C. In this one, I'm trying to make A the subject, as for all the other ones. So I'm adding 5b, and I can consider that an entire term. So instead of adding 5b, I'm going to subtract 5b from both sides. So we end up with 4a on the left-hand side, and c take away 5b on the right. We can then divide both sides by 4, so we end up with a on the left, and c take away 5b all over 4. Question number 7, we've got a plus 4 divided by b equals c. Now remember what I said. In these fractions, it's everything that's on top of here has to be divided by b. So actually the first thing we want to undo in this is the divide by b, not the plus 4. So we're going to do that by timesing both sides by b. So we end up with a plus 4 equals b times c, or bc. Now we need to get rid of the add 4, and we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. A equals bc, subtract 4. So lastly, in question 8, we've got a plus b in brackets and then squared equals c. As we said in question 4, the opposite of squaring a number is square rooting it. So we're going to square root both sides, and we get a plus b, we don't need the brackets anymore, equals the square root of c. Now I'm going to undo the add b, and I'm going to do that by subtracting b from both sides. So I'll end up with a on the left-hand side, and the square root of c subtract b on the right. You'll notice that the square root symbol doesn't extend over the take away b, it just refers to the c. So that's the answer to these problems. In this next question, we're given the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. The formula is P equals 2L plus 2W. And we're asked to rearrange this to make the width, or W, the subject of the formula. The first thing I want to take away from this side is the 2L, because that's being added. So I'm going to subtract 2L from both sides, and I get P, take away 2L, equals 2W. Now I'm going to want to divide both sides by 2 to get W on its own, and I end up with P, take away 2L, divided by 2. Or we can swap this round so that the W is on the left-hand side and get W equals P, take away 2L, all over 2. In this question, we're given the area of the triangle, which is A equals B times H divided by 2. And we're asked to rearrange this to make the height, or H, the subject of the equation. So the first thing we're going to do is, because we consider the B and the H on top to all be divided by 2, we think about it in brackets. So the first thing we'll do to get rid of the divide by 2 is multiply by 2. So that gives us on the left-hand side 2 times A, or 2A, and on the right-hand side we now just have B times H. Now, because we want to get H on its own, it's being multiplied by B, we're going to divide by B to both sides, so we end up with 2A divided by B equals H. Or we can rewrite this so that H is on the left-hand side by just swapping the two sides, and we get H equals 2A, 2 times A, all divided by B. And that's the answer to this problem. In this video, we looked at how we can go about rearranging an equation or a formula to change the subject. And we looked at two different methods of doing that, the balance method and the function method. You can use either of these in the next video, which is about solving equations and finding out what the variables actually represent. I'll see you then.